Mattel Auto Race. In 1976, the idea of gaming in your hands sounded impossible until Auto Race showed up. No colors, no screen, just a few blinking dots that would change everything. Mattel, a company known for Barbie dolls and Hot Wheels, wanted to branch out into the new world of electronics. They had just released a baseball calculator toy that did well, and their engineers thought, what if we could make something small enough to fit in your hand that actually played like an arcade game? The result was Auto Race, released in 1976, though some units hit stores in early 77. It became the first fully digital handheld electronic game, not mechanical, not analog, but 100% coded in silicon. The program itself fit into 512 bytes of ROM, hand-coded by George Close and Mark Lesser, two engineers who'd previously worked on early pinball and arcade systems. The gameplay was absurdly simple. A single LED represented your car, and other blinking LEDs were traffic. You moved a tiny wheel left or right to avoid crashes and reach the finish line. The sound effects were high-pitched beeps that made parents question if they should have gotten this for their kid. But it worked. The game sold like crazy, retailing for $24.99, around $120 today, and paving the way for Mattel's later hit, football, which became a national obsession. Auto Race proved a crucial point, that people would actually pay money for a portable game. It was the first domino in a chain that led straight to the Game Boy, the DS, and everything after. Every handheld that came later borrowed something from this blinking piece of plastic. It proved you didn't need a TV to play, just some imagination, and a tolerance for ear-piercing beeps. Microvision. 2 years later, the Milton Bradley Company tried to one-up everyone with the Microvision. It looked like a remote control, bulky, beige, and futuristic for 1979. But this was the first handheld with interchangeable cartridges. Pop off the faceplate, insert a new one, and boom, you just changed the game. It was basically a mini arcade system you could hold. Unfortunately, it was also fragile beyond belief. The LCD screen would leak, the plastic cracked if you breathed on it wrong, and the internal circuits fried in humidity. Most units died within months. Still, it was groundbreaking. Each cartridge had its own processor, so every game had unique power. Titles like Blockbuster and Star Trek Phaser Strike looked primitive, but the concept was light years ahead. They only sold about 300,000 units worldwide, but for a brief moment, this thing made people believe handheld gaming could actually evolve. Without it, there's a good chance Nintendo wouldn't have gone portable a year later. Nintendo Game & Watch. Then Nintendo stepped in and completely changed the game, literally. Game & Watch systems were compact, sleek, and fit perfectly in your pocket. Each one featured a single LCD game and, get this, a functioning clock and alarm. Hence the Watch. Gunpei Yokoi, the genius behind it, got the idea after seeing a bored businessman playing with his calculator on a train. He thought, why not make a calculator that's fun? Nintendo released 60 different models between 1980 and 1991. They sold over 43 million units and introduced two major innovations: the D-pad, which would define controllers forever, and the dual-screen layout, which Nintendo would later bring back for the DS. Games like Donkey Kong, Parachute, and Fire were addictively simple. People would play them for hours trying to beat high scores that reset when the battery died. It is the perfect mix of Japanese design and 80s toy culture. And yes, people were setting alarms on these things, while also pretending they were studying while secretly playing Donkey Kong Jr. under the desk. Game Boy. Released in 1989, it was a gray block that changed gaming forever. It wasn't powerful or colorful. It had a greenish screen, tinny audio, and no backlight. But it was portable, it lasted forever, and it had Tetris. Bundled with Tetris, the Game Boy became a global phenomenon. Over 65 million units of the original model sold worldwide, and Tetris alone moved more than 35 million copies, making it the best-selling puzzle game ever. Nintendo's secret weapon was simplicity, a 30-plus hour battery life, and a design that could survive almost anything. One famously survived a Gulf War bombing and was later displayed at Nintendo's New York store, still functional. It became a symbol of durability. Then came Pokémon Red and Blue in 1996, turning the Game Boy into a social device. Kids linked systems to trade and battle long before Wi-Fi existed. By the late 90s, it was everywhere. School bags, airports, military bases. That gray block proved that gaming didn't need power or graphics, just a screen, a D-pad, and a game you couldn't stop playing. Sega Game Gear. Not to be outdone, Sega showed up with the Game Gear just a year later. It looked way cooler, sleek, dark, and futuristic. It had a full-color backlit screen, stereo sound, and a library that included Sonic the Hedgehog, Columns, and Shinobi. The problem? It ate batteries like candy. 6 AA's lasted about 3 hours. If you wanted to finish Sonic 2, you'd need a generator. Sega even sold a car adapter and a wall charger because no one could afford to keep feeding this thing batteries. Still, it was ahead of its time. You could even buy a TV tuner accessory to watch actual broadcasts. In 1990, that was science fiction. It sold around 11 million units, which sounds small next to the Game Boy's dominance, but the Game Gear built a cult following. It was the handheld for kids who wanted to look cooler than their Nintendo friends, even if their system died halfway through recess. Game Boy Advance. After years of dominating, Nintendo dropped the Game Boy Advance, and it felt like a quantum leap. A 32-bit handheld that finally brought console-quality games on the go. The screen was bright, the colors popped, and the sound chip could actually produce music that didn't make your ears bleed. The GBA sold over 81 million units and hosted more than 1,500 games, a ridiculous number. It had shoulder buttons, backward compatibility, and some of the most iconic games ever: Metroid Fusion, Pokémon Emerald, Golden Sun, Mario Kart Super Circuit. Then came the SP model in 2003, a clamshell design with a front light and rechargeable battery. That flip-open-click was addictive on its own. The Advance even linked to the GameCube, letting you use it as a controller for special features in games like Zelda Wind Waker. It wasn't just portable, it was a legit second console for the whole generation. Nintendo DS. The DS was Nintendo saying, "We're not competing, we're innovating." It had 2 screens, a touchscreen, a stylus, a mic, and Wi-Fi multiplayer, all in 2004. People were skeptical at first. Then they played Mario Kart DS and shut up immediately. The DS sold over 154 million units, making it the best-selling handheld of all time. It became a cultural phenomenon with games like Nintendogs, Brain Age, Animal Crossing, Pokémon Diamond and Pearl, and New Super Mario Bros. For the first time, moms, dads, and grandparents were playing handheld games right alongside their kids. The system's PictoChat feature let people doodle messages across rooms, basically prehistoric texting. And that clamshell hinge made it indestructible. Kids could drop it a dozen times and it'd still power on. The DS actually connected people in a pre-smartphone world. That's why it ruled everything for nearly a decade. Sony PSP. While Nintendo was busy cornering every family in the world, Sony aimed straight for the cool crowd. The PlayStation Portable was sleek, powerful, and felt expensive in your hands. That glossy black finish, the click of the buttons, the startup chime, it felt premium in a way handhelds hadn't before. The 4.3-inch widescreen display looked unreal in 2005, capable of running games that genuinely looked like mini PS2 titles. You could also load up movies, music, and photos, or watch Spider-Man 2 on those weird little UMD discs that everyone seemed to lose. The PSP sold over 80 million units, which was impressive for a handheld that cost more than some home consoles at the time. It had an elite lineup: God of War, Chains of Olympus, Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII, Daxter, Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, and GTA Liberty City Stories. Games that made long car rides tolerable. And it was portable in the most social sense. You'd see people trading memory sticks at school like contraband, loading custom wallpapers and songs. But what really made the PSP legendary was the underground community that formed around it. Hackers found ways to unlock the firmware, turning the system into a full media hub. Suddenly, you could emulate NES, SNES, even PlayStation 1 games, all from one device. It became a digital Swiss Army knife, a handheld ahead of its time, and the first one that truly made adults jealous of their kids' toys. Steam Deck. Fast forward almost 2 decades, and the term handheld doesn't even mean the same thing. Valve dropped the Steam Deck, and gamers instantly lost it. This wasn't a toy, it is a full-blown gaming PC with analog sticks. Starting at $399, it could run Elden Ring, Cyberpunk 2077, or even Baldur's Gate 3. It uses a custom AMD Zen 2 CPU and RDNA 2 GPU. Translation: it's more powerful than most laptops. And it's completely open. You can mod it, install Windows, or emulate every console you grew up with. Valve sold over 3 million units in its first year, and the system exploded on YouTube. Tech creators turned it into a movement. It spawned an entire market of PC handhelds, the Asus ROG Ally, Lenovo Legion Go, all racing to catch up. If the Game Boy made portable gaming mainstream, the Steam Deck made it limitless. Nintendo Switch OLED. And finally, the king of the modern era, the Nintendo Switch OLED. Launched in 2021, it refined everything that made the 2017 Switch a hit. A vibrant 7-inch OLED display, louder speakers, better build, and the same genius hybrid design. You can dock it to your TV or take it on the go. Same console, same save file. That idea felt crazy at launch. Now it's the standard everyone's chasing. The Switch family has sold over 140 million units, making it one of the best-selling consoles ever. Games like Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, Smash Bros. Ultimate, Mario Odyssey, and Animal Crossing New Horizons have defined modern gaming culture. Even with all the competition, the Switch keeps thriving because it focuses on fun, the same philosophy Nintendo had back in 1989.